All right, apparently I'm live. Hello. We will start at 10 o'clock. So if you're watching this recorded, skip ahead the next 5 or 6 minutes until you see me again and I start talking. Otherwise, glad you're here, and send me a little message just saying you're here. So I'll know who I'm talking to. Awesome, thanks. All right, we're going to get started. And Aubrey, I think I see at least a message from you and see about others. If you will, if you're here, send me a message. That'd be great. But in the meantime, assuming some people watch it recorded, I want to go ahead and get started. And we're just going to go through. Feel free to, let me see who else. Sharif, what's going on, big guy? All right. Hey, I'm glad you guys are here. Mostly, I tell you what, I'm looking for a sense of normalcy. I just need to do something because I'm going a little stir crazy. I sent you all a picture of my little setup in here. It's not real high tech, but I appreciate y'all being here. Who else we got here? We got Jenna and Jessica and Sydney. Sydney, how you doing? Missing tennis, I know that. Annie. Okay, who the heck is Mira on the wall? Haley. Cole is here in the house. Jaden, Alondra. Hopefully we'll see more. Lanassa, I can't figure out how to send a message during your YouTube live video. It's harder to do on a phone than it is on a computer. I know that for sure. But hey, guys, I hope I'm finding you and your families well. I know this is hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for my family, and we have our entire family here. And so that we're all kind of holed up. I don't even remember what a restaurant looks like anymore. We can't go to the beach anymore. And so we might as well stream economics live. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to try to do this every day at 10 o'clock. This week, we're not going to continue with our lessons. We're not going to teach new stuff, but we're going to go over micro, and then start next Monday, we'll do the new stuff. And we're going to do everything we can to get you guys through this. If you haven't heard it yet already, your test is going to be a 45-minute, one-line FRQ type test. I think you can do really well. I believe in you guys. I think we could have a great pass rate. There's going to be some options as around whether you have to take the test or not. I would encourage you to take the test because you're going to do this. I see my phone's blowing up with stuff. That's cool. Not a problem. But if you have questions, ask them. I'll try to check on it every once in a while. It's hard for me to see. You can see me kind of getting really close to the computer here because I don't see too well. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, so we don't. Hopefully, 45 minutes will be done. We're gonna give that a shot. If you need to do screenshots, feel free to do screenshots. If you want to, please have something with you so you can write, because we'll do a little bit of writing, and the writing is really important. That's how you're going to learn. But we're going to go over things, just all these things we're going to need to know, because what I imagine you're going to be doing for this test is it's going to say, what's the answer and explain. What's the answer and explain. What's the answer and explain over and over and over again, because they need to make it more difficult to cheat. And when they add that word explain, it makes it more difficult to cheat. Because if your paper looks exactly the same as other people's papers in your same city, they're not going to be very happy about that. And so they're going to do these various things. So think about explain. So just going through real quickly, and it's been a long time, scarcity, right? Scarcity, we have limited resources, unlimited wants. That's scarcity, right? If we didn't want it, it wouldn't be scarce. Like polio's not scarce, we don't want it. COVID-19 right now is certainly not scarce. We certainly don't want that. But if things are scarce and we want them, if resources are scarce and we want them, then that's scarcity. Goods and services, right? Goods and services are produced from resources. Remember, this is sell, capital, entrepreneurship, land, and labor. Okay, and they're limited. Okay, scarcity requires choices. That's something they could ask about, right? Choices, right? Scarcity requires choices. And if you use something for one thing, you can't use it for the other. Opportunity cost is what you give up, right? Opportunity cost is what you give up, and it's the next best thing. Remember that, right? My opportunity cost here is not archery. I could be doing archery. That's a choice, but it's not my opportunity cost, because if I wasn't here doing this, actually today I'm not sure what I'd be doing, but normally I'd be doing something fun. Okay. Moving on, economic cost counted. So when we talk about cost in economics, we include opportunity cost. So economic cost include explicit cost plus implicit cost, right? Explicit are all the things we write checks for, rent, all those other things. Implicit is our opportunity cost. So just remember, that's a big concept in economics. Explicit, so this is, remember with explicit, that's accounting profit, right? Accounting profit. Implicit cost is opportunity cost, the cost of your labor, the cost of what you could be doing, the cost of using things in other ways and all. Okay, free goods doesn't involve opportunity cost. So if something's free, just breathing air, there's no opportunity cost, although clean air has an opportunity cost. Same thing with water. There's lots of water, but clean water has an opportunity cost. And then the other thing is marginal, right? Marginal is so important in economics, especially in micro. We talk about marginal all the time, right? Marginal is what happened to the quantity. How much did it change? How much did the price change? How much did utils change? How about cost? What was the change in cost? If you produce 5 and then you produce 6, what's the difference in total cost between producing 5, producing 6? And then we have things like utils per dollar that we talk about a whole lot. Who else has joined us? Oh, wow, good. Lots of people. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Brandon doesn't think I know he's Lablasian, so he's explained that it's Brandon. But Brandon, I know you're Lablasian, so appreciate that note though. Okay, the slope. When we talk about the PPC and opportunity cost, that opportunity cost is slope. If you just know that, that's good enough. You don't need to do calculus to figure out, get the derivative of it to get the actual slope. Just know that it incorporates slope. So if you get a question on that, you're good. Okay, we want to be efficient. We'll talk about trade sum and all, and so we'll get to that. But economic systems answer three key questions. I don't think you'll see anything like this, but you could. What to produce, how to produce it, and for whom it gets produced, right? What to produce. People decide that because companies aren't going to produce things we don't want. How to produce it, companies get to make that decision. And for whom to produce, price decides that, right? You go to Starbucks, if you have $5, you can buy a drink. If you don't have $5, you can't. They don't care how rich you are. It's just a matter of, are you willing to pay that price? Can you afford it? Okay, three types of economies. Traditional economy is, if you think back to farming and all, you already knew what you're going to do. The man was going to be a farmer. The woman was going to be a farmer's wife and do all the farming stuff and everything else. And it's like you knew that, from the day you were born. A command economy is like Cuba, where the central state determines most of what's done. And then a market system is where the market gets to do whatever it wants, kind of like a flea market, and you have to develop relationships with customers, okay? We have a combination system because we have the country, the government controls a lot of things, but by and large, we try to have a free market determine things. And if you're watching the news, you're getting a lot of discussion about what should the government do, what should the free market do, some things about price controls and price gouging, things like that. It's an interesting economic time, even though it's, I'd rather it not be so interesting. Okay, so first thing I want you to do real quickly, if you can, draw a production possibility with increasing opportunity cost, pizza on the x-axis, robots on the y. Identify what's our labels for inside on and outside the curve. Show growth and identify 2 sources of growth. Which one has increasing opportunity cost? Is it pizza? Is it robots? Is it both? Or is it neither one? And draw a point that would be allocatively efficient in the event of war. I'm going to give you about a minute, so try to do it really quickly. If you just know it all, you don't even have to draw it, but drawing never hurts. So you got about a minute here. All right, that's probably long enough. Hey guys, I just want to say how much I appreciate you being here. It means a lot to me. Hopefully we're learning stuff. And if nothing else, we're getting to see, getting a little bit of contact with each other. I need a little more human contact. Love my family, but there's just four of us. Well, our dogs too. And it's nice to be in contact with somebody different. Okay, so here's robots, pizza. A, this is inefficient. This is efficient. This is impossible, especially in micro. We learn in macro it's not so much, but in micro it is. Okay, show growth. Growth would look like this, right? That's growth in both, right? Not one or the other, but growth in both. And growth could be increases in technology, increases in resources, increases in capital formation, or capital accumulation, or total capital. Which has increase in opportunity cost. They both, it's always both. One of them can't have increasing, the other one not. They both have increasing opportunity cost. And a point that would be more efficient, you'd want more robots, right? And so just somewhere over kind of this direction. Okay, so somewhere kind of over in that direction. Ah, Tamira, you're here too. Cool. All right, and Kendrick, hey man, Seth, a lot of people here, so that's awesome. All right, here we go. Okay, next up. Okay, circular flow, we're gonna actually hit that in a minute. So we're gonna get that, oh goodness, here we go. Trade and comparative advantage, we're moving on. Okay, so right here, calculate opportunity cost, who has the absolute advantage, and explain. And guys, there's gonna be a lot of explain, so make sure you're focused more on the explain than we did under normal circumstances. Explain would be about 10 to 15% of the test. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't end up being 50% of this test, that they're going to talk a lot of explain because it's one of the ways to differentiate. So be ready for explain, okay? So answer these questions. And terms of trade, who would be willing to do 8 for 1? Who would be willing to do 4 for 1? Who would be willing to do 2 for 1? I'll give you about a minute or so. Go for it, because this is live. I got to give you time. Go for it. See how much you can do. Maybe a couple of minutes. All right, that was fun. Okay. First thing you can do, remember Mr. Clifford's quick and dirty? That's really useful for making sure you do things right. 25 times 4 is 100. 12 times 5 is 60. These two are your winners, right? 100 is bigger than 60. Okay, you know they're their winners. You still need to be able to calculate opportunity cost because they're going to ask you to do things like that. They're not going to ask you just to pick the winners. They're going to ask you to calculate opportunity cost. Because of the changes in the exam, this is far more likely to be on the exam than it would have been had they not made the changes. So make sure you know how to do this. Absolute advantage, okay? It's whoever can produce the most with the same resources, right? Most, same resources. Okay, that one's pretty easy. It's USA, USA. Speaking of which, the Olympics just got put off by a year. You probably knew that. Comparative advantage, okay? The USA has the comparative advantage in apples, right? USA, apples, and it's because they have lower opportunity cost. 1/5 is less than 1/3. Canada has the comparative advantage in computers because they have lower opportunity cost. 3 apples is less than 5 apples, what they're giving up, what they have to sacrifice. What are you going to export? Well, you export what you make. So US is apples and Canada is computers. Okay. Terms of trade. Okay. Now here's where you need to be able to process this because this probably, if this type of thing gets on the exam, this probably will get on with you. Okay. This is one computer to 5 apples, 1 computer to 3 apples. Okay. Canada is doing computers. So I circle this. And I circle, right, USA is doing apples. Make sure I don't get that confused. Okay, so USA is doing apples, Canada is doing computers. So if we're trading 8 apples for 1 computer, then the USA is not going to do it. But Canada would because Canada makes for 1 computer, they can only get 3 apples. They would love 8 apples instead. Okay, so Canada would be yes, USA would be no. I'm not giving you 8 apples. I can do it myself for only 5. The USA, both would do 4-to-1 because both would benefit, right? 4 is bigger than 3. 4 is less than 5. They would both benefit. What about 2-for-1? Well, the USA would be happy to trade 2 apples instead of 5. But Canada would be like, no, I can give up a computer and I can get 3 apples. So the US would be yes, Canada would be no. So that would work that way, okay? Now, what if it were an input problem? Okay, what if this was, and I'm gonna erase this in about 5 seconds, okay, and we're gonna make it an input problem, but what I can tell you already is the answer is gonna be exactly backwards. And by the way, sorry for that light right there, okay? But there's only so much I can do about that. I wish it wasn't there. But we'll deal with it. We'll do the best we can. What if it were an input problem? Okay, I'm going to erase everything. Well, everything's going to be exactly the opposite. It takes 25. Let's assume this is 25 hours to produce, however many apples. Let's assume this is 1,000 apples, okay, and 100 computers, okay, and this is what it takes them to do this, okay. Well, then it's all our answer is exactly the opposite, and you still can do the quick and dirty, but you don't want to be the one that takes the most hours. You want to be the one that takes the least amount of hours. So now you take the smaller numbers, right? So it's going to be this and this. Okay, because those are the smaller, so those will be the 2. They're less likely to ask all this stuff about comparative advantage and opportunity cost, but you can still try to answer them in a similar fashion, but they'll have to give you some more details. I don't want to get
into that in a super way, but realize the absolute advantage is now going to be Canada, okay, because they take less time to produce the same things. Instead of producing more, they take less time. You'll export whatever you have the comparative advantage in. Your terms of trade will actually end up, they don't typically ask this on an input problem, so you probably won't see it. But the big thing is, but the answer is why? It's still lower opportunity cost, okay? Lower opportunity, you give up fewer hours to produce the same thing. So your answers will be very similar on an input problem. Just realize every single answer would be exactly backwards of how we did it. All right, so I know that was fun. Mr. Clifford's got lots of videos on these things, so and we'll cover them more as we get closer to the exam date, which we don't know exactly right now. Okay, circular flow model. Can you do this? Can you do that real quick, right? That's households. That's firms that I can't spell. Okay, households and firms. Can you fill that in? Do you know what goes? And it doesn't have to be here and here. There is no requirement for this something to be here, something to be here. But you got to have something there, just not specific things. Okay, what's it look like, right? And we're going to go ahead. We're going to put the resource market up here, and we'll put the goods product market down here. If I screw things up, remember this is live. I'm doing the best I can. Okay, so who provides stuff to the household, or who provides stuff to the resource market? Households do, right? What stuff will it sell? Right? Capital, entrepreneurship, land, and labor. So they provide resources to firms. And by the way, we're going to be talking about that a lot in macroeconomics now for the next month or so, because the ability to provide resources has dropped dramatically, and it's having a big impact on our world as far as being able to supply firms with resources. Okay, and then firms provide goods and services, and we want those goods and services. Okay, remember this is also the factor market, and these are also the FOPS, factors of production. Without a multiple choice section, probably not going to have to deal with that. I really doubt you'll have to do this, but they might ask you a question like, who provides resources and who do they provide them to? Well, households provide resources to firms. Okay, if they ask you something like that, you ought to be good. Remember, money makes the world go round, and we're going to get to talk about that a lot in macro because there's a lot of money right now. They're talking about a $2 trillion stimulus program. Our budget for the year is $4 trillion. That $2 trillion is two more trillion. So we go from a budget of $4 trillion to $6 trillion, all of which will be borrowed. I'm sure you'll get it paid back someday, but we'll worry about that another day. Right now, we just got to take care of things. Okay, everybody good? I don't see any questions here. We're good, which is fine. You don't feel like you have to ask questions, but if you do, if you have them, go for it. Okay, I certainly don't mind them, and I'll check every now and then. You'll see my face up close or something. Okay, demand, the law of demand, right? We need to know that, right? As price increases, quantity demanded decreases. Okay, we'll have some great questions. There'd probably be a supply and demand question because that'd be a good one. Somebody's going to have it. There'll be so many different tests that who knows which ones you'll get. But as the price increases, the quantity, not the demand, but the quantity demanded, right? And that's where we talk about the change in demand versus change in quantity demanded. The change in quantity demanded is only price. Demand is shifted by, excuse me, times, right? Taste, income, related goods, which are complements and substitutes, expectation, size of market. Okay, right now, mask, right? Mask, taste. Everybody wants to have a mask now. They believe they need them. Income, not a big driver of mask at all. Related goods, not that big a driver either. Expectations, huge driver. People want masks, even people that don't need them because they might need them. And then the size of market, the number of people that need masks, wearing masks has increased immensely. So you've got taste, expectation, size of market, all working to drive up the demand for a face mask as protection. What PPE, right? Personal protection equipment. Big acronym the news is using all the time. Okay, a change in demand is a shift. In a change in quantity demanded is along the curve. Okay, these three guys, right? 1, 2, 3. You need to know those things. Income effect, substitution effect, diminishing marginal utility. That's why the demand curve is downward sloping. The income effect is it uses up more of my or less of my income. I can afford to buy more. The substitution effect, the lower you put your item at, the more likely I am to substitute your item for some other item. And then diminishing marginal utility, as I consume more of anything, they become less valuable. Okay, which is right there. All right, we're going to move on. And hey guys, if you do have a question and it comes in a little late, don't worry about it. We'll talk about it anyway. Okay, supply works exactly the same way. The only difference is, right, stores and the law of supply is the price increases, the quantity supplied increases, right? And by the way, that's happening all over the place. Masks, ventilators, things like that. The price is going up for those things. Businesses are jumping in and saying, hey, I can do this. And not only am I providing a service to humanity, but I can make more money than I could have otherwise. Okay? Supply, right? Supply is stores, which is subsidies and taxes, right? The government's going to subsidize certain things that already are, especially healthcare right now. Technology, other related goods, which is kind of, well, we're getting an example right now. The car companies are being asked specifically to manufacture ventilators and substituting them for cars. So that's other related goods. If you can manufacture ventilators and you can also manufacture cars, but now you need to manufacture ventilators, there's going to be fewer cars supplied, more ventilators, which of course makes some sense because there's probably fewer cars being demanded right now. Resources, price of resources, then expectation, size market again. So all of that, and it's been a while, but all of that's good and true. Okay. So do this for me. Okay. Here's your work. Draw a supply and demand graph, show price floor and ceiling, and identify the surplus and shortage on each one. So I'll give you about a minute. So go for that. Okay, there's a perfectly drawn graph. Make sure, right, that's perfectly competitive market just for whatever product, doesn't matter. Okay. Up here, an effective price floor, right? That's a floor. So a floor is above equilibrium. A ceiling is below equilibrium. Both of these prevent you to get from equilibrium. In this case, supply is too high relative to demand. That's a surplus. Here, demand is too high relative to supply. That's a shortage of that amount, right? This amount right here, right? You need to be able to know that, okay? If they do this on the exam, it'll have actual numbers, so you're gonna have to deal with numbers. Okay, what will happen to price and quantity? Well, right here, okay, if that's a floor, the quantity is gonna go down because here's equilibrium quantity, here's the actual quantity because people aren't willing to pay that high price, okay? But the price will go up. So price increases, quantity decreases, quantity demand, okay? And the similar thing would happen here, except in this case, price goes down, but quantity still decreases because now people won't supply it. Okay, identify an ineffective price floor. Okay, an ineffective price floor would be right here because you'd be saying, hey, you can't sell gas for less than $1 a gallon. Well, even now with oil prices plummeting, gas is not below $1 a gallon, and it won't be because of taxes and other costs, and more than likely, I guess you never know, never say never, but it probably won't be. Okay, the one other thing that could happen is we could have a quantity control. A quantity control, right? There's Q, quantity control. It accomplishes a similar thing because it says this is the maximum quantity. Well, businesses are going to produce that much because that's all they can sell. They're going to actually charge way up here, right? Because they know that people are willing to pay for the amount they produce. People are willing to pay a lot, okay? And so that would be a quantity control. Let's keep moving. Okay, right? I'm going to do this with you real quick. Supply and demand, right? Supply, demand, that's consumer surplus, that's producer surplus, okay? And that's simply the difference, right, between what people are willing to pay and the price, the difference between what these people are willing to pay. So you just add up all the differences between what people are willing to pay and the price, and producer surplus is what businesses could produce it for relative to the price. So those are our two surpluses, and you ought to be good on those. Those aren't too bad. You're going to do an FRQ in a minute that gets it a little bit more complicated, but not too bad. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so here's supply and demand for item B. We're going to go ahead and do that. Supply and demand, right? Price equilibrium, quantity equilibrium. Item A substitute for item B increases in price. Okay, process yourself. What I need to do if a substitute increases in price? What curve do I shift? I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, a substitute for item B increases in price, substitutes Coke and Pepsi. Coke raises their price. What's Pepsi going to do? Well, people are going to buy Pepsi. That's going to increase the demand, causing both price and quantity of item B to increase because people are going to write D1, new equilibrium, that would be Q1, that would be P sub 1, increase, right? Moving on. Okay, a component Okay, so here we are, supply, demand. I'm not gonna put as much detail. So item A is a component of item B, and it gets more expensive. What's gonna happen? Give you a few seconds, go. Okay, a component, that's a resource. A resource gets more expensive. You're going to decrease supply, which is going to cause price to increase and quantity to decrease, right? So we didn't draw the equilibriums, but you get the idea. Okay, government grants a subsidy. Okay, so what happens? Same thing. We'll just stick with supply and demand here. What's going to happen to supply or demand, if anything? Yeah, couldn't help myself. Okay, government grants a subsidy. That means it'll lower cost for businesses, so supply would increase. Okay, government sets an effective price floor. Okay, we just talked about that, right? Same thing. So an effective price floor is above. Okay, so we're going to be here. So what happens to price and quantity? Think through that real quick. And you can see we would have been here. So price has increased. We would have been here. So quantity has decreased. You get it. You're good. You are ready. Now for the fun part. Okay, these are FRQs. Going to give you a couple of minutes. Try to answer as much as you can, as quickly as you can, even though you don't have nearly enough time. Write the information down and answer it the best you can on a scratch sheet. If you want to keep anything, don't hesitate. You can screenshot it or whatever. All right, we're going to do the best we can on this. Okay, the markets are interrelated. Okay, on your supply and demand graph, you want to be detailed, right? So 1,000, equilibrium quantity is 1,000. That's 1,000. Okay, equilibrium price is $1. That's $1. Here's supply, here's demand. Okay, suppose the government imposes a price floor at $1.20 right here. That's $1.20. Be specific, right? That's the price floor. The quantity supply goes to 1,500. 1,500. Market. Be specific. Would the price floor result in a shortage, surplus, or neither? It's a surplus. Now, they don't give you this number, right? So you don't have that number. So you can't say what the surplus would be, so don't. Okay? Because you just don't know what it is. But what you can say is the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. Okay? That'll be good enough. What will happen to the price and quantity of coffee? Okay, you need to compare coffee to bananas and muffins, right? Well, these are banana muffins, right? So we're going to buy less. Muffins are going to become more expensive. People are going to buy less muffins. Coffee and muffins are complements. They're going to buy less coffee. So the demand for coffee is going to decrease. So the price is going to decrease and the quantity is going to decrease. Because coffee is a complement of muffins. The price of muffins goes up. The demand for coffee will decrease, causing both price and quantity to decrease. You probably would be okay simply by talking about the demand for coffee decreasing. All right, moving on. Okay, draw a correctly labeled graph. That's what we just did. I guess I kind of jumped the gun there. Sorry about that. On the graph, show the impact of an increase in the price of bananas on muffin market. We did that. No, we didn't, did we? On the graph, show the impact of an increase in the price of bananas on the muffin market. Did I screw up? I did I? No, okay, there we go. All right, so that's different. My bad. Okay, market of muffins. So this is now no longer bananas, it's now muffins. And P0, Q0, P0, Q0, supply, demand. We're good, correctly labeled graph. Boom, check them off, right? P0, Q0, we're okay. Show the impact of an increase in the price of bananas. Okay, that's going to cause supply, right? It's a resource for muffins. So we're going to label that. They say 1 here, so we're going to label that supply 1, P1, Q1. So we're good there. Completely shade there. This is the part. Look at that. See if you can find the area that represents the change in consumer surplus. So take a second, see if you can figure out the change in consumer surplus. All right, so what you hopefully recognize is all of this was consumer surplus. With the change, only this part up here is now consumer surplus, which means that this, all of that in there is the change in consumer surplus. And so that's what they wanted you to label right in there. That's the change in consumer surplus. Okay, and I had one more good. There we go. Okay, this is it. Last FRQ, then we're going to wrap up and live for another day. Okay? Answer as much of this as you can. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, which I know isn't very much time, but we're live and sometimes you deal with this stuff. As much as you can.
Bring 'em out. 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 Bring 'em out.
All right. Caught a little feedback action there, sorry. A little inspirational market. Okay. This was a recent AP exam question. Okay, they do not say anything about whether it's increasing opportunity cost or not, so no big deal. So 50 and 100, and I'm sure it says food on horizontal. So there's food and capital goods on vertical. Sweden, 50, 50. Capital goods, 100, 100. And we'll just make it constant, but it didn't matter whether you did constant or not. Norway, 30. And then 120. So we need 120. Pretend I had room here. Okay, so this is Sweden. That's Norway. Okay, you need those numbers. You don't get credit without them. Okay, plot the relevant numerical values. A point that represents an efficient level of production, labeled E. You know what? I only needed to do Sweden, didn't I? Okay, so we're only going to pay attention to Sweden. Since we've got it marked, we're good. Okay, efficient level, boom. E, anywhere. Inefficient level, I. Anywhere inside. Unattainable, U. Anywhere outside. Sweden moves from producing 2060. Okay, so let's find 2060 for Sweden. So 20 is about here, 60 is about there. That's about right here. Okay, to 30 and 40 capital goods. So they produce more with less capital goods, right? So capital goods are going to decrease. what will happen to economic growth? Growth will decline, okay? And then explain. If they produce less capital goods, they'll have lower capital accumulation, which will reduce the rate of growth in the economy. Create less capital goods, creates less capital accumulation, less growth in the economy. Which country has the comparative advantage in the production of capital goods? Okay, capital goods. Well, we already, actually, you can look real quick and you can see this is higher. So you're going to go with that and that, because anytime they're alternating higher, you're just going to pick that one. So, you'd rather have, and once again, you're quick and dirty, right? 30 times 100 is 3,000, 50 times 120 is like a lot more. So it's those two. Okay. And so the comparative advantage for capital goods is going to be Norway, but you don't say because of the quick and dirty, you say because they have a lower opportunity cost of producing capital goods. They give up less food per unit of capital goods. And you could actually give the numbers, right? 30 divided by 120 is 1/4 of a food, and this one is 1/2 of a food. So you give up 1/4 of a food versus Sweden giving up 1/2 of a food. And identify a specific number of units capital goods that could be traded for 10. Okay. So here's where they ask you, did you do the calculations? Okay. So using the table, capital goods that could be traded for 10 units to be mutually beneficial. Okay, so that's 1/2 and that's 1/4. So we're going to go over here to make it a little bit easier, right? 100 divided by 50, that's 2 capital goods. 120, that's 4 capital goods. So what number is between 2 and 4? Well, that means 3 capital goods. Okay, so an efficient number would be 3 capital goods. So number of capital goods that could be traded for 10 units. Well, this is 1 unit. So if I make it 10 units, how many capital goods do I need to trade for? First one to send me the answer. Let's see which one. I need a winner. Come on now. All right, Haley Peters, first one to get in the correct answer, right? If I can trade 1 for 3, I can trade 10 for 30. Okay, 30 would work. In fact, any number greater than 20 and less than 40 would work. Just make sure you don't include 20 and 40. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for joining today. Encourage your folks. Anybody from first semester that still wants to take the test in May, it's like encourage them to join us for the next couple of days. We'll move on now to markets and all. And so we'll do some market stuff tomorrow, and we'll definitely keep it under an hour. In fact, I'll try to see if I can figure out a way to narrow it down a little bit. But thanks, everybody. Unless you have any more questions, we're going to call it a day and we're going to shut down. Thanks again. Be safe. Make sure you maintain social distancing. And I've now put on hand sanitizer, I think about a dozen times, and there's no one else here at school to speak of. My room is really lonely. In fact, you can I'll just show you around real quick. Yeah, here's what it looks like. There's the windows. And yeah, there's no one here. Okay. It's really quiet. Well, cool. Thanks. And we're signing out, and I'm going to end this stream, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.